Coming up now, a new curriculum on consent and abusive relationships that will help to end violence against women will be rolled out as close to 2024 in primary schools.
Here to discuss if consent should be taught in primary schools is Dr. Siobhan O'Higgins from Active Consent NUIG and Noeline Blackwell from the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre. You're very welcome, both of you. Siobhan, I'm going to come to you first. Is this long overdue, the concept of teaching consent to young children and to get that into their minds from an early age?
Well, I think it's something that parents do anyway. It's part of the education, how we educate our children to actually respect other people and to know their own boundaries in all sorts of things. It's not just about sexual consent. Children are very aware of consent, you know, how they get a toy off another person without just robbing it or hitting the other person, you know. So we do teach our children this from a very early age anyway. And the thing is now...
But we mustn't be doing a very good job if you look at the amount of assaults on women in particular, and I suppose the lack of respect that you do see towards women and the dignity of their bodies nowadays. So that teaching from the parents mightn't be getting through all that well. No, we need to support parents and have education in schools that is up to date, relevant and useful to young people, because young people have been saying for a long time that the RSE, or the relationships and sexuality education that they do receive and has been mandatory in this country since the late 1990s, from 5th class upwards in primary school and all the way through secondary school, is not meeting their needs and giving the information that they need. So they're looking for information from other sources. And the problem is those other sources are not teaching them respect. They're not teaching them about boundaries. They're not teaching them how to form mutually respectful, mutually consensual and mutually enjoyable and safe, intimate relationships with other people once they're old enough. So there's a lot of confusion for children at the moment. There's all sorts of issues around gender identity. There's so much information out there, and, you know, who's giving them the phones? The parents are. So, you know, it's about supporting parents to be able to talk to their children as well as the school. You know, it's a double thing to support.
Yeah, we'll definitely come back to that again in a second, Siobhan, but I have to ask Noeline about this. Of course, you work for the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre. I mean, do you think that teaching young children consent, even at primary school level, is this, I mean, have you seen a huge spike in cases in violence against women? We've obviously seen that. Does it go back to young ages to teach this sort of respect?
Yeah, so I think it is really important that this is done. We know now, for instance, that young people are curious, they're getting information in primary schools. They're watching, some of them are watching pornography from the age of 8. An awful lot of young children, including young boys, have seen their first pornography between 8 and 11. They're still in primary school. And I think what Siobhan is saying there is so right. You can build up an understanding of what children need to know when they need to know it. Respect for themselves, for their own bodies, respect for other people and their bodies as well, and just an understanding, giving them language, giving them a way of explaining what they might need to say, because we, as adults, a lot of people come to us about abuse they suffered as children. So even to limit that would be great. So, and what we know for sure, we did in the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre, we did research on consent last year, and we know that people, particularly in Ireland, aren't getting the information that they need at a suitable time. They are not comfortable with an understanding of respect, of healthy relationships. You know, I was at something yesterday in Maynooth where the presenter was saying that, like, his child gets the last class of the school year was, you know, when he got 1 hour in relation to the RSE programme for the whole year. So you have a whole you have a whole group of young people growing up without the tools they need, without the language they need, without the understanding. And therefore, when you say, have we a spike in relation to cases? No, but we have more of an understanding now from people that that the abuse that they suffered is not something that they brought on themselves, that someone did it to them, and that where they are engaged, and many, many young people, including young adults, are telling us that they now understand things that they were uncomfortable with were just downright wrong. But they don't have a way. It has to be built into the way we can talk about things.
Siobhan, Noeline was talking there about children being exposed to shocking footage, really, at a very, very young age. And at the other side, parents are worried about teaching something like this in schools. You know, surely we have to balance what they're being exposed to now, because you can get anything online with, as Noeline said, the tools to be able to talk about it, process it, and still... And it doesn't have to do with sex when you're young. It's to do with just respecting another person.
Yeah, and it's not just porn, it's in all sexual media and TikTok, in all the things that they're watching. There's lots of sexual imagery and sexual ideas that they're picking up, you know, and absolutely, we need to give them critical media literacy skills, which is just added to the other things that they have to learn. But there are wonderful programs happening in Ireland at the moment. We've got WebWise and CyberSafe Kids do very good programs for primary school children in relation to understanding the disinhibition effect that you get, because people aren't being kind to each other on the internet, and you know, it's part of that. It's, as Noeline says, it's about building an understanding of how to form respectful and kind relationships with other people, not just intimate relationships, but kind relationships. And you know, we're giving them the phones, so just understand that. And it's about supporting parents as well as the school to be able to talk to their children, because I mean, how the context in which they're exploring their sexuality is very different from when we were growing up. Absolutely. You know, the context has changed so much, so we need to not be judgmental, not judging it from our own viewpoint, but actually to listen to our children.
So is this about, is this just sorry, really quickly, is this consent, is this about teaching about consent with sex with primary school children? I mean, we talked about porn. Is this what you're going to be doing, or is it just consent in a wider basis?
But it's consent, not just about sex. It's about, you know, coming into someone's personal space, to understand that you have a personal space and you allow people that you trust, your friends and your family, into your personal space. But you don't let anybody come into your personal space, and you don't go into other people's personal space. And it's that kind of lesson of respect and knowing, because consent is, you know, students on our program came up with the idea that consent is OMFG, ongoing, mutual and freely given. So understanding that it's an ongoing thing. Just because, you know, you touch someone or you held someone's hand before, you can't assume that they want to do it again. But also it's being able to deal with rejection, all those things, because we're not teaching our children those kind of skills, you know.
Well, you can definitely see that. I can see that with my own 5-year-old. There are a lot of parents out there with a lot of children just don't understand the word no. And of course, from a young age, you're taught you can have whatever you want, you can do whatever you want, and that's something that needs to change. Listen, Dr. Siobhan Higgins, thank you so much for joining us again this morning, and Noeline Blackwell, of course, from the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, it'd be really interesting to get your opinion on that as well. At home, 0896 111 111. And if you want to get more information on this, check out the consenthub.ie.